You're listening to Scotty and Andrew, and this is Fun with Horror.
Hey, I'm Scotty.
I'm not Scotty. I'm Stanley.
And welcome to episode number 103 of Fun with Horror. This is a very special bonus episode for Friday the 13th. And Stanley and I are going to talk about Friday the 13th Part 3D.
Wee.
3D, right?
That's the one. Yes.
Hi, Stanley.
Hi.
Oh, man. It's so good to have you back again.
It's so good to see you. How you been?
I've been good. This is going to become a regular thing for us, maybe, like doing Friday the 13th.
I kind of feel like it is too, which I'm perfectly okay with.
I think I told you it's funny because this is supposed to be a randomly picked Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
So Andrew and I on Friday, the first Friday the 13th that we had during this podcast, we decided, hey, let's do a stupid commentary for Friday the 13th Part 1. After that, I said, let's just roll a 10-sided die and choose random Friday the 13th for Friday the 13th. And randomly, the second movie we picked was Friday the 13th Part 2. So I was like, okay, well, the third one should be interesting. Let's roll a die. And it was Friday the 13th Part 3. So Now I don't know whether to keep rolling a die or now just go in order.
You know what? The next one could be Part 7, which would be really great for me.
Wonderful for you.
We love Part 7 on this end. But, if we end up going in order, that's fine too, because Part 4 is also a blast.
Yes. Well, I think they're all kind of a blast, right?
They have merit.
In a way. But before we talk about it, I wanted to talk to you about a few things.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know if you realize this, but you've listened to some of our episodes. You know how now there is a sound bite from whatever movie we're doing at the beginning of the episode. It starts the episode.
Yes.
And then it goes into our Fun with Horror theme. That started with our Friday the 13th Part 2 episode.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In that episode, I decided before that episode, let's say, it always just started with the Fun with Horror theme, the theme song. But that episode, I decided to put this little sound bite that I found on YouTube of like before.
Yeah.
I really liked it. So I think the next episode I experimented differently, but then 2 episodes after that, I started putting an actual soundbite from the movie at the very beginning.
I see.
So,
that's fun. Okay.
And now I love it. I love starting our episodes with a soundbite from the movie. And yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 started that.
Okay, cool. I love it. We're a trendsetter. Setting trends on Friday the 13th.
Second of all, we briefly mentioned this at the end of our last episode, which, by the way, I kept saying that this episode was 4 days after that, and I was so wrong. This is 3 days after our, what was the movie? Talk to Me, our Talk to Me episode. So,
okay, yeah.
You have a wonderful new podcast.
I do. I like that you think it's wonderful. Thank you. I think it's wonderful too.
A lot of people do. Come on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's okay. So far, it's okay. Yeah.
Are you having fun?
You know what? I am. Yeah, it's different. It's different than what I'm used to, because I've been doing the whole video blog thing for the last year and a half or so. Yeah, I just got tired of editing my face. I think I told you that. I just got tired of seeing my face all the time. And
yeah,
I've always toyed with the idea of doing a podcast. I just never had anybody to really do it with. And aside from co-hosting with you on occasion, which I've always been really grateful for. And then I met Alex, and thankfully he's into the whole horror thing as well. And this gives us the opportunity to, watch horror movies together and talk about it. And he's got a great voice for it. And it's just always nice to bounce off another person, so. Yeah. So, yeah, Gory Gaze, man. The Gory Gaze. Go listen, guys. If you ever get the opportunity, feel free.
There will be a link in the description of this episode. But yeah, everybody go to your favorite, whatever you're listening to this podcast on, go look up The Gory Gaze and listen to Stanley and Alex, because honestly, I actually do like it. I try not to be prejudiced because you're my friend and everything, but
Aw.
when I listen to you guys, I genuinely have a nice time listening. And you guys are fun. You're fun to listen to.
Oh, that's nice of you. Yeah, we try to have a good time, because it's you can only have as much fun as you do have, And I mean, like you and Andrew, you guys are a blast to listen to, and it's obvious that you guys have a good time with each other, and we are just trying to do the same thing. And we're relatively new. We're only 3 episodes in at this point, and doing the thing.
So the movies at the time of this release, the movies you've done are Single White Female,
Yes.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which we've done
Yes.
in the past.
Yes,
and The Worst Witch.
The Worst Witch, which is, so far it's funny because we're called the Gory Gays, and we have done literally 0 gory movies.
That's true.
Which is
That's
kind
true.
of ironic. We have some pretty fun movies lined up. We have a good calendar with some pretty fun movies penciled in. So I'm looking forward to it.
And the one thing I've told you that I really enjoy, it's such a difference hearing you talk to Alex than when I talk to you on here, because you're actually in the same room with Alex recording. So your voice is so much softer and gentler and like almost sensual as well. And I
I got to use my sexy phone operator voice. It's different. And it's funny because I will listen to, not all the time, obviously, but I'll listen to like older podcast episodes. Like I listened to our Friday the 13th part 2 episode, just to rebrief myself for this one. I do sound quite different when I'm talking to you as opposed to, the episodes with Alex. So it's funny.
Well, and especially different from how you sounded on your Stanny Boy Reviews YouTube channel. Yeah,
it's a different vibe. And I want to really reiterate that whole thing is not dead. I'm probably gonna jump back in on that here and there. I'm toying with the idea of resurrecting it, I guess. But that's not dead. I just have to get the energy for it. It's a lot of work. This stuff's a lot of work. I have to give you guys kudos, because when I was, considering this whole podcast thing, I was like, oh, it's not going to be that hard. But this shit's hard. It's not easy.
It takes some time. I mean, the goal, I'm not going to go into this too much, but obviously the goal is to have fun and to make it as easy as you can.
As long as you're having fun with it, I guess that's like the whole point. And I am. Yeah. We're having fun with horror. Bada bing.
Bada bing, bada boom. Before we get into Friday the 13th, have you seen any movies lately?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I saw Totally Killer. We watched Totally Killer the other night, which I really, really liked. It could have been called Happy Death Day Part 3 or The Final Girls Part 2.
Something like that, yeah. But it was super fun. Fine.
Really loved it. I love Kiernan Shipka, man. I think that girl is so good. If anybody has never seen The Black Coat's Daughter, watch it. It's so good. Also watched The Exorcist Believer. I have thoughts. I know you liked it. I did not.
We did, we did disagree, and I'm not going to get into that too much because I'm pretty sure Andrew and I are going to be doing an episode at some point in the future. So I don't want to get into too much, but I'm just going to say that I enjoyed it and you did not.
Yeah, and see, we can say the same thing about Pet Sematary Bloodlines because I enjoyed it and you did not.
Well, that's more subtle. That's more nuanced because I did enjoy the first hour. The first hour. Okay, the first 2/3 of the movie I thought were great.
And then it fell off for you.
Yeah, in the last half hour. So we can talk about that later, but yeah.
But what else? We saw 10. I saw 10 as well.
Oh, Saw 10. Saw X.
10. That's what it is. Well, geez. Whatever. It's a Saw film. It must be Halloween. I think that's it. That's a lot of movies, though. I feel like that's quite a few movies.
Nice.
What about you?
No, I mean, I've mentioned in our past episodes other movies I've seen, but the only movies I've really seen since then were what you mentioned, what we already mentioned, Pet Sematary Bloodlines and The Exorcist Believer.
Perfect.
And I'm actually trying to get through. Yesterday, I started a movie called The Wailing. It's a Korean horror film.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
man, I was not in the frame of mind for that movie because that is a heavy movie. It's got some humor at the beginning, but it gets heavy and
Yeah.
a little bit depressing. And I'm a little over an hour into the movie. And last night I decided, you know what? I'm going to finish this tomorrow because I'm not ready for this. I just want to play
Yeah.
video games.
No,
So
I totally get it. Sometimes you got to be on the right frame of mind.
exactly. Speaking of the right frame of mind, let's talk about Friday the 13th, part 3.
Yeah.
You are indeed, all of you, kind and generous young people. Look upon what his grace has brought unto me.
What is that?
I found this today. There were other parts of the body,
That's an eyeball!
but he said he wanted me to have this. Yes, he wanted me to warn you. Look upon this omen and go back from whence ye came. I have warned thee. I have warned thee.
Everybody listening, if you by some weird chance have not seen Friday the 13th, part 3, this is your warning that Stanley and I are going to spoil the crap out of this movie. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, you can stop listening and then pick it back up after you've seen it. Otherwise, continue to listen. And Stanley,
Hi.
hi.
Oh no.
It's that time, my friend.
It is that time. All right.
And because you're a guest, normally guests get to do the 3-minute recap automatically, but also I just did it in our last episode. So I was thinking of taking the pressure off of you, but then I was like, no, listeners don't want to hear me do a 3-minute recap 2 episodes in a row.
You know, they do.
No.
You know what? I'll take one for the team. I enjoy these. They're
good.
There's a little bit of pressure, but I watched the movie.
Well, there's
So-
only a little bit of pressure. I mean, if you go over 3 minutes, you die. So
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
only pressure.
And I want to live.
All right. So whenever you're ready, give us a 3-minute recap of Friday the 13th, part 3D.
All right, I am ready. Let's talk Friday the 13th, part 3.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
Okay, Friday the 13th, part 3 picks up pretty much right after Friday the 13th, part 2. And it basically, there's a recap of the ending of the sequel. And then we get Jason, who has yet to find something to cover his face with. And he goes to some store that's, in the middle of the woods on the lake. And it's owned by a couple named Harold and Edna. And it's a pretty lengthy opening sequence. And Jason kills both of them. And then we get a crew of teenagers. I'm assuming they're teenagers. And that would be Chris. And then there is Debbie and her boyfriend, Andy. Debbie is pregnant. And then we get Shelly, who has big poofy hair, and he's a prankster / actor. And they go and pick up Vera, who is supposed to be a match of sorts for Shelly. And together they're going to Chris's lake house, which is, of course, on Crystal Lake. And I think it's called Higgins Haven. And they also have a pair of friends with them named Chuck and Chili, who are, pot smokers. While they're on their way to the lake house, they run into a vagrant in the middle of the road who is holding an eyeball and claiming that he found it somewhere in the woods. They get to the lake house and we meet Chris's former flame, Rick, and we find out that there's a backstory of sorts that Chris has experienced some sort of trauma from a couple of years ago. And she was attacked in the woods by a disfigured man that we learned later on was Jason. And while they're there, Shelly is constantly pranking people with fake special effects. And it's actually Shelly who introduces the Jason mask later, the hockey mask. but Vera and Shelley go to a grocery store, and they end up having an altercation with a trio biker gang. The biker gang ends up following them back to the lake house. They cipher their gas. The biker gang gets killed inside of the barn house. All this time, Jason is simultaneously dispatching these people inside of the cabin. And we end up having a showdown between Chris and Jason. Chris realizes that Jason was the man who attacked her in the woods a couple of years ago. And Chris ends up axing Jason in the head and then hanging him in the barn. At the end, she kind of has a similar dream sequence that Alice has in the first movie, and then wakes up and is taken away by the police with the indication that she has kind of lost her mind. And we leave with Jason's body on the barn floor, and that's the end of the movie.
Wow, that was amazing. That was just under 3 minutes.
I feel like that was my best one yet. I didn't lose my mind.
I'm going to be incredibly honest with you. Listening to your recap made this movie sound much better than it is.
Oh, okay.
I was invested.
Okay, good. Wait. Oh God, I'm excited to hear if you actually liked it.
Well, I'm going to ask you first.
Okay.
Because I know part 7 is your favorite.
Okay.
So how do you like part 3? And how do you like it compared to the other Friday the 13th movies?
So I've re-ranked this franchise since my viewing of this film. My favorite used to be part 7, followed by Jason Goes to Hell, and then I don't remember what came after that, because those were the two that I used to watch the most. And I think my favorite now is Jason Goes to Hell, followed by The New Blood, part 7, and then I think that 3 would come in a close third. And I know that might surprise some people. Man, I didn't realize how much I enjoyed the kills in this movie.
Okay.
The kills in this movie are pretty freaking solid. And the 3D stuff is a little obnoxious. I made a list of every time there was a 3D gag effect, and it didn't take me out of it, though. I was expecting it to take me out of it. You watched this in 3D, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
which
okay.
I'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, and I didn't, but I made a list, a notation of every time that something was supposed to be in 3D, and it was very obvious. But yeah,
that's a long list.
It's a very long list, and it's very heavy-handed at the end. Holy shit! But I really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than part 2. Aside from the introduction, the recap of the sequel was a little annoying, and then the 15-minute intro that basically felt like a Halloween movie was a little off-putting, but everything else I kind of dug. Like, I don't remember watching this movie in its entirety, I guess, because it felt like the first time I watched it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that I enjoy this movie now more than I used to, because I think, as I mentioned this in our Friday the 13th part 2 episode, but I'll say it again. There was one summer, 2015 or 2014, where I watched all the Friday the 13th movies plus the remake. I was shocked at how bad Friday the 13th part 3 was at that time, because I remembered part 3 being such an iconic entry in the series, because that's where he gets his mask. But then I was watching it back then, and I was thinking, man, this is just not a good movie. This time I was able to give in to the camp and the ridiculousness of it. And I do enjoy the movie. I think the acting is not great.
Yeah, there's a lot of soap opera acting, a lot of Lifetime acting. The final girl is definitely not my favorite. She picks up at the end. I think the chase sequence at the end is really, really good, especially for this series. But she's not the worst. I don't think she's the worst final girl in the series. I think that could definitely go to someone else.
These episodes are helping me really get to know each movie intimately. So
agreed. 100% agreed.
I've watched Friday the 13th 1, 2, and 3 like so many more times than any of the others.
In depth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like this time just for this podcast episode, I watched part 3 one time normally for enjoyment, a second time. Wait, hang on. Let me think about this. My God. Did I watch this 4 times?
Oh my gosh.
I'm just trying to think about this because I feel like I watched it once. No. Okay. So I watched it once for enjoyment. I watched it a second time listening to the commentary that comes on the Blu-ray, which is a lot of the actors. It's mostly the actors. And then Peter M. Bracke, who wrote Crystal Lake Memories, the in-depth behind-the-scenes book for all of them.
Yeah.
So he's in that commentary as well. So I watched it a second time with that commentary while also taking notes. And then that same night, I watched it a third time. As I told you, I am lucky enough to still have a 3D capable TV. I turned off all the lights in my bedroom and I watched it in 3D. And let me tell you, man, I am so thankful to Scream Factory for putting this 3D movie on this Blu-ray box set that I have, because they redid the 3D in the newer 3D technology. It's not the old red and blue technology.
Yeah.
And it looked amazing. It's just fun. It's so much fun to watch. So
that sounds good.
yeah, I just wanted to enjoy it in 3D before we recorded. So
I bet that was fun.
So yeah, I've seen this movie a bunch of times in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I only watched it twice. I felt like twice.
No, that's good.
So 4 times. Holy hell. Good for you.
No, good for you for watching it. No, 3 times. 3 times for me.
Oh, three times.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But
yeah.
still, 2 times is a lot. So good job.
Yeah, no. And I think that the first time I watched it prior to the second time was the first time I had probably seen it all the way through as an adult. I thought I watched all these movies during the quarantine. I thought that I did like a big marathon, but I don't think I paid a lot of attention because there was a few of these death scenes I didn't remember. They surprised me.
Well, we're definitely going to recount all of the death scenes.
Yeah.
Do you think that they did the Friday the 13th sequel intro? Friday the 13th Part 2, sorry. Do you think they did that intro to pad the running time?
Oh, 100%. Otherwise, this movie would have been an hour long. And that's the most annoying thing too. Like, you don't need it. You could have done something completely different. You could have fleshed out maybe the pregnant couple. You could have done something, but this was such a different time. We didn't believe in plausible screenwriting back then, especially for these kind of movies. They didn't want that. Yeah,
and this movie came out a year after Friday the 13th Part 2. So people that had seen Part 2, I think they still remembered it.
Apparently not. I mean, I appreciate a recap, I suppose, but not to that length. Like, they literally gave us the entire ending of Friday the 13th Part 2. Can you imagine if all the Halloween movies did that?
They almost gave the entire ending. They left out the little dream sequence.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made it what actually happened, quote unquote, with what's her face?
Jenny.
Jenny, yeah. With Jenny surviving and being taken away by the paramedics, and no Jason coming in through the window and all that.
Yeah.
This one was also directed by Steve Miner.
Oh, yes.
Who directed Part 2.
Absolutely.
He's also directed Halloween H2O, which I know you like.
Oh, I love it. I just got the 25th anniversary steelbook, baby. Oh, yeah.
He also directed House and Warlock, and he's the only person to direct 2 Friday the 13th movies.
I got that trivia answer correct at the 25th anniversary screening of Halloween H2O that I attended recently at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. The screenplay was written by Martin Kitrosser, who helped write Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning.
And Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5. You're welcome.
Really? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know why I know that.
And it was also written by Carol Watson. So it was a team effort there. And did you know this? You probably do, because I think you look up trivia like I do. This is the only Friday the 13th movie where Jason's name is never said throughout the entire movie.
Oh shit! No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
I
didn't
had no
realize
idea.
that until somebody said it in the commentary, and I was like, "Holy crap, that's right."
Oh, that's wild. I think I'm so used to these movies opening with a campfire story, like with a
Yeah.
narration of like, oh, legend around here. And then you get the whole thing about Jason. So I don't think I paid any attention to any of that. And he's such a prominent figure in this film too, which is so funny that you don't ever get his name. It's the Mandela effect.
They never say his name. They
And
say
it's
his
so
name, and even in part one, of course, obviously, they say his name a lot.
And that's weird because we get the mask. It's like the iconic introduction of the mask, but you don't hear his name once. That's really interesting.
So what did you think of the characters? Did you like any of the characters?
It's funny because I just ranked this like number 3 of the whole list of films. And I don't like a lot of the characters now that you ask me. Chris, I didn't really love until the end as the final girl. She gives that monologue about what happened to her a couple of years ago. And I don't know if I was experiencing some weird like internal high, but I was giggling the whole time. Like I was just like laughing my ass off. Like how ridiculous is this stupid ass backstory that they just threw in? Like I felt like it was just such lazy screenwriting and they needed to make it a Friday the 13th film. So that's how they did it, was they with that backstory, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she's pretty terrible up until the end, I think. I think the character of Rick is just so awful. What a laughable actor. I don't know if it's the writing or what, but he's pretty bad. Everybody's pretty bad except the pregnant couple. I really liked the characters who played Debbie and Andy. And
really?
I think that they're the best actors in the whole film.
I think that's probably maybe true. But the one character that I liked was Vera. Shelley's blind date.
Oh yeah, she is really good too, and she has one of the best deaths in the movie.
Yes, which made me really sad because I'll be honest, when I rewatched this a couple weeks ago, the first time I rewatched this, I've probably seen the movie maybe 2 or 3 times in the far past. I couldn't remember who the final girl was, and I kind of thought that was a compliment to the movie that the final girl to me wasn't obvious.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought maybe Vera was going to be the final girl.
Yeah.
Because she's the outsider. She's kind of the person that's brought into this group and she's apart from everybody. But then I realized when Chris is telling the story that, Chris is the final girl. And then Vera dies.
She smokes pot in the van.
Who does? Which one?
Vera.
Oh, she does? Oh, yeah.
In the van, so she's bound to die. You're not allowed to smoke weed.
Did you know that the actress who plays Chris, Dana Kimmell, she was a real life Mormon?
Oh, that explains the monologue delivery.
Yeah, totally. There's the monologue delivery. She actually had a line in the movie that referred to her and Rick having sex, and she asked them to cut the line.
I firmly believe this. It's so funny. It's so wooden. Like that's the best word I can think of to describe her performance. Again, up until the end, which I think is pretty strong. She just delivers such a stiff performance. And I mean, these roles don't require a lot when it comes down to it. I was surprised that they went with this actress.
Yeah, it was interesting, even in the commentary. So the commentary was Larry Zerner, who plays Shelley.
Ugh.
It was her and your favorite, Paul Kratka, who played Rick.
Oh, yeah. And, again, I don't know if it was Rick or if it was the dialogue. Like, because Rick appears a handsome guy. But another thing that I had written down, he just appeared to be way too old for
yes
the character of Chris. Like this guy could have been like a I don't want to say her father, but like a much older brother.
I agree.
What the hell was he doing there, and how did he relate to this story, and how did he relate to her, and why was he there, and why was she going back? I have a lot of questions now that we're talking about this.
Yeah, he did seem a little bit older.
Yeah,
I can definitely tell you that I think the worst actress, and I hate to say the worst actress because I don't like to talk bad about anybody, but what Chili, the stoner woman. Oh my
You know
God.
what's funny is I actually thought that Chili was pretty good, and I contribute the pretty good to the fact that she was high. So all of her reactions are pretty solid to the fact that she was stoned, right? I mean,
I disagree so much. I thought that what's Chuck?
yeah.
Chuck and Chili were the most sober looking stoned people in any movie I've ever seen.
I love the part where Chuck is in the outhouse, and first off, this is one of, there aren't very many movies in general, let alone horror movies, where people are just openly taking a shit. Like, this movie has so many people taking a shit. And in this one, Chuck is in the bathroom, he's smoking a joint, and then the outhouse is shaking, and he just like looks up all frantically, and the look on his face is priceless.
You know why he
Hard.
had that look on his face?
Why is that?
Because the crew members were touching his butt. Like, there was a hole in there. He wasn't taking a crap for real.
Yeah.
But they were actually messing with him during that scene. They were like poking him and stuff. So
did you learn that on the commentary?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
When he's smiling, that's why he laughed and smiled, because they were messing with him.
Oh, these movies were probably a lot of fun to be a part of.
Funny you say that. It goes back and forth when you're listening to them talk about the making of this movie, because they do say that they had fun. They do say that everybody got along and people had a good communal feeling working on this movie. However, it was cold, first of all. In a lot of the scenes, it was very cold when they were shooting. Also, because of the 3D, they had to do so many takes of different shots, because whenever you had a 3D moment, you had to have something going directly at the camera. So if you're throwing something at the camera, it has to go directly at the camera. And if you miss, guess what? Another take. And
yeah,
especially in death scenes and stuff, these poor girls would have to like scream their heads off and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. So it was evidently a very, very hard shoot because of that.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about how the poker scene with Chili took like 32 or 40 takes or something like that, with the poker going into the camera lens like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exhausting.
Very exhausting. Also, did you know what the original idea for this movie was?
I thought that it had something to do with Jenny's character still being intact with the script and her being in a sanitarium.
Yes.
And something, but then there was something about her learning martial arts, or am I on the right page, or is that a different storyline?
I don't remember the martial arts. All I heard was that it was supposed to, Steve Miner wanted it to be about Jenny in a sanitarium, and people start dying in the sanitarium.
Yeah.
But
martial arts, what the hell am I talking about?
Maybe that's true. Maybe
it's a kung fu film.
But yeah, the producers wanted it to be another Jason in the Woods, camp counselors.
And she didn't want to come back. Amy Steele didn't want to come back, and so they went.
Oh, that's true too. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, see, I've heard two things. I've heard that she didn't want to come back, but I've also heard that it was the producers that wanted it to be the same type of movie.
Yeah,
so, I don't know
which is so weird, because I couldn't help but think while watching this movie that if you changed the music to Halloween music and put a Halloween mask on this guy, it would have been a Halloween film.
At times, definitely the beginning.
Yeah, like this was like, to me, like this was just like a Michael Myers movie. And I think that's why I liked it a lot, because I've already told you I prefer Halloween over this series through and through. And yeah, there was like a lot Halloween-esque moments for me.
Yeah, and if you haven't, everybody listening, if you want to hear Stanley and I talk about our favorite horror series as far as slashers go back to our Friday the 13th Part 2 episode, because we definitely talked about that. So I guess let's just kind of go through the deaths.
Oh, sure.
As you said, there are a lot of good ones, and I was surprised at how many deaths there are.
This has a high kill count.
Yeah, yeah. So the first we have that intro scene with Harold and Edna, right?
Yeah.
Edna,
Yeah.
which features Steve Miner, the director, on the newscast as the news reporter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And it has that wonderful shot of the snake.
Yeah. There's like some weird desperate grabs for that 3D stuff. Like
yeah,
I go ahead.
I didn't. Well, I was just gonna say I didn't mark them all down like you did, but I marked down the really cheesy good ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And the snake was definitely the first that I marked down.
Yeah, that one was a good bit. But Harold, the cleaver in the chest was I don't remember these movies being surprised. I mean, that gory. Like
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
the first one being bloody, but then there's the uncut version that is that is available, and even then that one doesn't seem all that bloody. And then there's the second one, and then this one, like it starts off with that cleaver in the chest, and that was a lot bloodier than I remember. And then the crochet needle through the, is it the throat or the mouth? I couldn't really tell.
So Harold gets the cleaver in the chest, and then Edna is looking for Harold, I guess, and then yeah, she turns around and Jason's behind her and grabs her head, and then he shoves the knitting needle through the back of her neck and it comes out of her mouth.
Okay, that's what happened. I couldn't tell if it came out of her throat or not with the way that his hand was holding on to her. I wasn't sure.
Definitely out of her mouth, which was
okay.
It wasn't super bloody, but it was very cool looking.
Okay, yeah. Again, she was also too young for Harold. There's a lot of women who were too young for the men. Yeah, he was like 100 years old.
She felt like she had the pants in that family.
Oh yeah. I would have, yeah.
Oh, she was terrible.
I would have been hiding Jack Daniels in the bathroom toilet too if I was Harold.
By the way, what an amazing edit where Harold goes into the shed and he finds the dead bunnies, which I thought was sad.
Oh, terrible. I thought of you too.
But then I was happy that it wasn't Jason that killed him. It was a snake that killed him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Jason would really waste all of his time killing a bunch of animals.
Well, that's what I almost didn't like. If Jason was going to kill the bunnies, I was going to be really sad. That's how evil he is. But it's the snake, and the snake jumps out at Harold. Harold is screaming and falling down, and then it literally cuts to Harold going into the outhouse and calmly, without any panic at all, just sitting down to take a dump.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's a lot of excrement in this movie.
He was fine. He was fine after the snake.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, it literally scared the shit out of him.
That was my exact thought. It's so funny you say it.
So Edna and Harold die. Then, we're introduced to everybody. I will say this. Did you know that Larry Zerner was cast? Literally, he worked at a movie theater, and one of the two casting people, I think the writers actually, saw him handing out stuff and just looked at him and said, "Hey, are you an actor by any chance?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And they cast him in the movie then and there.
That's wild. He is perhaps my least favorite character in this whole movie. And it's annoying because he has the most character development, I think. And he's probably, I could understand why he could be someone else's favorite character at the same time because he has the most character development. Yeah, he's just really intolerable.
I understand. He's not my favorite character, but he's also not my least favorite character just because I feel like he was written to be annoying.
Oh, yeah.
And so I felt like maybe of all the writing in this movie, that was the best writing was Shelley's part because they wrote him as an annoying, the boy who cried wolf with his special effects. And then I also appreciated the fact that when he's at the fire and he turns to Vera and he says, I really like you. And she's like, Shelley, no.
Oh, yeah. It is.
That's
really
not going to happen. Huh? It is. And she's still nice to him, but she's just honest. And and then he doesn't turn into like today's quote unquote nice guy where the moment he's turned down, he just starts calling her a B word or something. No, he's just like sad about it,
Yeah. He does have it. They do have like an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. not to be too surface level about this, but I also thought she was the most attractive to me.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. And you know what? I speak just did you notice that this one also is the one with the least amount of nudity out of the films? This one has the lesser amount of nudity.
I realized that it had very little, but
yeah,
I'd have to watch the rest of them.
I think I keep track of that stuff. I don't know why.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome. I'm here for you.
This is why.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah, the entire part with Shelley and Vera at the service station was hilarious. As a big time nerd, I really appreciated that Shelley was standing in front of a rack of comics, and that Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, was maybe the most highlighted comic book behind him.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Well, then you need to see a movie, my friend. It's called Shang-Chi.
Okay, I'm going to add it to my list.
There you go. It's a Marvel movie, not a horror movie.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought it was a cartoon. That's my
No.
immediate thought was like, oh, okay.
It's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's great.
Terrific.
I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look into it.
There you go.
Yeah, I actually really like that scene. I like that part where they are leaving the little grocery store, and Ali smiles at Shelley, and then Shelley smiles at him back, and they have that little moment, and then he busts the windshield.
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off.
That was great.
I think Shelley actually thinks everything's okay. And then he just bashes the windshield.
Actually, I missed something. I want to go back real quick.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it in your recap. There is the new Doom guy, the guy that's laying in the middle of the road.
The new Ralph.
This was the biggest evidence to me that the producers wanted this to just follow the footsteps of the other two movies. Because Ralph obviously is dead. He died in part 2. So they had to have a new Ralph. So they made this guy Abel, who is also like a transient guy laying in the middle of the road, and then has this stupid moment with the eyeball.
But they didn't do anything with him.
Exactly.
That's it. They have him there to give you another 3D moment, and then they don't bring him back. They don't kill him. That's what they could have done. They could have shortened our intro moment from all that stuff with the recap, and then given us a death scene with that guy. They could have done a lot more. Who is that guy, by the way? Because I had written down and then did no further investigation. I feel like that guy has such a familiar face.
His name is David Wiley. I know who he is.
Yeah.
He played the judge in Society.
No, that dude, gross. Okay.
That man was part of the shunting.
Oh God, I was just looking at him, and I looked at Alex, and I was like, that guy has such a familiar face, and I cannot quite place it.
Oh boy, does he?
That would be it. Oh God.
I think the next death after the two at the beginning would be the biker gang, right?
Yeah, and I dig the pitchfork. I dig the pitchfork stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for a barn murder. I think barn murders are so fun. I don't know why. I love the stuff that happens in Halloween 5. I love barn stuff. I think it's great.
Well, maybe this is why this is your third favorite Friday the 13th.
You know what? I think it all just came together. I think my love for Children of the Corn and all that stuff, it all coincides. Yeah, I like that. And this is another part where all the 3D stuff goes ham.
Yeah. I thought it was very funny, actually. I just found myself laughing that people just kept going into the barn to die for a little while.
Yeah, that's for the whole middle section of the film.
Wait, I have to ask you, did you see the Children of the Corn remake, the more recent one?
Awful.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah. And I'm an apologist for those movies. Let me tell you, I will make up any excuse to have all of them. I have all of them. And then I cannot find any redeeming quality about that movie.
Wow.
Go forth.
Wow.
Go forth.
I'll watch it someday maybe, but
yeah. It's on Shudder.
Here's the funny thing. I thought, Shelley knocks their bikes over basically, and then he runs over one of their bikes. with the Volkswagen Bug Beetle. So I thought that these guys, these biker gang people, were coming to, what is it, Higgins Haven, to steal their gas. I'm like, oh, they're just going to siphon their gas? Okay, cool. But they actually planned to set the barn on fire.
Oh, is that what they were doing?
I'm pretty sure, because they were taking the gas into the barn, and I'm pretty sure that they were going to set the barn on fire. So we have Fox, who goes in first, and we don't actually see her die, but when the next guy goes in, what's his name? There's Fox. Oh, Loco.
Yeah, Loco.
When Loco goes in, he sees Fox hung up, I guess, with the pitchfork.
Yeah, impaled.
Which was cool looking. Yeah, impaled.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then he gets the pitchfork in the stomach that comes out his back, which, again, like you're saying, pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ali goes in and is beaten down by Jason, who we all thought he was dead.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert, he's not.
Yeah, and that was another thing, because Jason like hacks him a lot with that machete.
Bludgeon.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He just bludgeoned him. The machete was at the end of the movie.
Oh, okay. I think
Yeah.
Mandela affected myself again there.
It's okay. This is what happens when you watch it 3 times.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's the 3 of them. They're down for the count. Man, who's next? Oh, wow. Surprisingly enough, Shelley he's not really the next death.
Okay.
Because he doesn't die yet, but we have like the whole scene with Chili and Chuck, and it looks like Chuck's going to go into the barn, but then he doesn't, and Chili stops him. But then we have Shelley and Vera, right? So Vera gets pissed off at Shelley because he plays another trick on her, and that's when he finally puts on the hockey mask. Yeah. He's got the wetsuit on, but then he goes to the barn because he hears something and he thinks Chuck is in there. We see Vera on the dock dropping Shelley's wallet into the water, and I'm pretty sure this was the Paramount lot because it looked like the lake that I've been to. Have you been there?
I have not been to the Paramount lot, no. I've been to every other major studio lot except Paramount. Yeah.
Man, they did a Halloween thing 2 years in a row, and then they stopped, and I wish they'd do it again because it was better than any of the others. It was so good.
Oh, man.
They had a Freddy versus Jason quote-unquote maze where they would take you by tram to the lake, their lake set.
Yeah.
And you'd walk around the entire lake and go into a cabin, and it was so freaking cool. They had a guy dressed as Jason that walked out of the water like he was coming up from the water and just looked great. So
that's really neat.
Yeah, it was great. So this was a very lame little lake compared to the lakes in the other movies.
Okay.
Did you notice that in this movie?
Yeah, I noticed that this one definitely looked like California. Like this looked like a Californian, like you can tell when it's Topanga Canyon as opposed to, like a what is the word I'm looking for? Like an East Coast type of Crystal Lake. There's a severe difference. And I didn't look and see where this one was filmed, but it doesn't look like the Crystal Lake that we got in the previous 2 movies.
I didn't look either. I just kind of assumed that it was filmed at the little lake on the Paramount lot, but
yeah, it looks a little different.
It looks like a puddle compared to the lake in the first 2 movies.
I do like the vibe though. Like I had noticed that it kind of, and maybe it was just like where I was when I was watching this. Like it has like that October-y vibe. I was getting a bunch of fall vibes watching this when I watched it.
Which you're not supposed to have. This takes place in the summer.
I know. What the hell is going on here? But I felt good while watching it at this particular moment in time.
So Vera's death is awesome.
Love it.
It breaks my heart because, like I said, she's my favorite. But
yeah,
I love everything about it. I love Jason appearing in the hockey mask for the first time.
Yeah. And it's so cool how it's a fake out too, because she thinks that it's Shelley. Just the way that he comes out on that little dock.
Yeah.
And that's when I think that the 3D effect would work really well if I was to be wearing 3D glasses. That, like, even in a 2D version, that effect is just really cool.
It worked okay.
Yeah. For me, I thought it was great. Yeah.
I'll talk about the 3D effects in a second,
Yeah.
but that scene, the thing I love about that scene the most is obviously he shoots the spear gun and the little spear through her eyeball, and she falls into the water and dies. I love the way he just nonchalantly just like drops the spear gun on the dock and just walks away. Like,
bye.
No care in the world. He doesn't look menacing. This was who played him? Wait,
Richard Brooker.
Thank you. Richard Brooker, who was a British actor.
Yeah.
Who I think, if I remember right, he came into audition with, and he saw a bunch of other like big guys and realized that they were all auditioning for the same part. They picked him right after he auditioned.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's really cool.
So yeah, so I love that. I love Jason in that scene, basically.
Yeah, it's a really creepy scene. And
that's the other thing. Like, yeah, it's iconic that he gets his mask in this movie. The other thing I realize is there's just a lot of iconic Jason moments in this movie.
Yeah, and I think more so in this one than in a lot of the other ones. Like, right. and I know that they replicate or duplicate, whatever the word is, a lot of like the stuff from the first movie. Like they do the spear through the chest again, like they do in the first movie with Kevin Bacon. They do that to Debbie. They do a lot of the stuff that they do in the first film again, but they do it well. They do it again well in this movie, and I think that it actually works a lot better in this one than it does in the first one. I don't think the first one's a very good movie. I don't know. I don't think the first one is as good as everyone makes it out to be.
I don't know if everybody really makes it out to be a good movie. I think, in my view, I think a lot of people just recognize it as the beginning of this franchise and a very influential movie.
Maybe that's what it is.
Even though it was other movies that came before it that influenced Friday the 13th.
Absolutely.
I think it just started this whole series, which is just such a huge series now. So yeah, I don't think people really think it's a great movie.
Touche.
And yeah, if you watch the Kevin Bacon scene now, you can see the appliance.
Oh, yeah. Especially on a 4K television. Oh my gosh. You could see everything.
Yeah. And I think it's great. I think obviously Tom Savini is amazing, but it's dated now. You can see the difference in the skin tones, and you don't see that as much with Debbie in this movie.
Yeah.
We'll get to her death, but yeah, it's definitely something. But as far as iconic shots, I was talking more about like just there's a shot of after Jason throws Rick through the window near the end.
That's Jason
when he's climbing in through the window.
Yeah.
That shot is iconic. Everybody remembers how he looks. And then of course at the very end, I think it's after she axes him in the head, right?
Yeah.
And he like throws his arms out and walks towards her.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's another iconic Friday the 13th moment. Like I'll probably use that as one of our promotional photos, you know.
Oh, good. That's a good one to use. It's scary. Like I thought the ending was really tense. I don't remember the ending being as tense as it was. And for a Friday movie where everything is, from what I remember, being as cliche and what it is for our Friday movie, this was really refreshing, especially for the first three movies basically being the same film.
No, I agree. Continuing on with the deaths. So after Vera, we actually have Debbie, right? Yeah, Debbie and what's his face? Andy, thank you. Why don't I have that written down? Andy, I have his death. Debbie is in the shower, and Andy does the famous walking on his hands.
Which I still don't understand exactly how that works, because it looks like when he's above him that he slices down, but apparently he slices him in half. Is that how it works?
He slices down, so he's... Yeah, okay, so here's how it works.
I need an anatomy
lesson. He slices down through his crotch, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of splits Andy in half vertically.
I see.
So then he puts Andy up above where their hammock is. So when Debbie is in the hammock and she looks up, what she's seeing is if you split the bottom half of Andy in half and then pulled his legs up by his by his head,
Yeah.
that's what it would look like.
I see. Okay. I've never like paused it or anything, you know, I just kind of like see the glimpse that she sees and I'm just like, oh.
I think for me, it stood out because, first of all, that death is awesome.
It's
the way
great.
But then I was really shocked at how gory that moment is where Debbie's reading a Fangoria magazine, by the way.
Which is awesome.
Yes. Blood drips on the magazine as she looks up and she sees Andy's dead body in the rafters. Yeah. And I was surprised at how bloody that moment is, like how gruesome his body looks.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really good.
And then, as you said, Jason shoves a knife up through from the bottom in a deliberate homage to the Kevin Bacon scene in part 1. And
it's so good.
It looked a lot better. And of course, that cuts directly into popcorn being popped into the camera. 3D.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Because then we have so Chuck's making popcorn.
Yeah.
And the power goes out, right? So he goes downstairs to check the power. In that moment, before Chuck actually dies, I think, Chili is in the kitchen and Shelly comes in with his throat slit. So all this time, Jason slashed Shelly's throat, but Shelly was not dead. And he was making his way to the cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he dies there. And then Chili finally realizes that Shelly is not faking it, that he's actually dead.
Yeah, she's like kicking him. She's like, get up, come on. Stop messing around.
Another iconic Jason moment was Chuck in the basement when he has the light and he shines it and Jason is standing there in the hockey mask. And then, I mean, Chuck's death is kind of lame in my opinion because Jason just throws him at the transformer, the fuse box, and Chuck electrocutes himself and dies. Then we have the most amazing acting sequence ever.
Your favorite?
Chili running up the stairs going, oh,
I just don't think it's that bad.
Oh, watch it again. Just watch it again. It's the worst acting maybe. I'm going to go out and say it's the worst acting moment in any Friday the 13th movie.
Oh gosh, I don't think it's that bad at all. That's so fun.
Oh my God.
I just think that she's so high that she's just having a meltdown. I think that it's from, you know what? If I was all stoned in a cabin and just found out that everybody was all dead around me, I think that I would probably be reacting the same way. Like, oh yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
well, bless you, Stanley.
I know. I guess
then that is the one moment in the movie where she actually does a good job acting stoned.
I deserve to be pokered in the stomach.
Because I think the rest of the movie, you know, falling asleep is supposed to be them being stoned. Also, Chuck acting like Cheech. No, not Cheech, Chong. Tommy Chong. He was
it. Yes,
he was acting like Tommy Chong.
Yeah.
And I think just him talking like Tommy Chong was supposed to make him look stoned, and it didn't. It just made him look like he was doing a fake accent or something.
No, you're right. I couldn't place the Tommy Chong name. Like I kept thinking too, like, why is he's doing something? But of course, it's an obvious ripoff of Tommy Chong. Of course.
Yeah. Very obvious.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier. Chili gets the fire poker through the body.
Oh yeah.
Which is actually pretty cool.
Love it.
And then all we have left are Rick and Chris.
You know, I feel like a lot more people died in this movie.
But they didn't.
I thought this was a higher kill count, but I feel like this is like six or seven people.
Well, let's see. It's the two at the beginning. Then we've got the three bikers. Then we've got Shelly and Vera. And then Rick and Debbie, or Andy and Debbie. And then
Chili and Chuck.
Chili. That's 11. And then Rick is 12. 12's pretty good.
That's it. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
Cool.
13 if you count quote unquote Jason, but we know he's not dead.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Rick's got a pretty good death.
I actually like this death. And you know what? I think that this is the best shot of the entire movie is when Rick goes out of the cabin And then Chris goes out to look for him and the camera pans out. And then you see Jason and Rick having that struggle in the bottom, like right corner of the camera. And they kind of like linger on that for a moment. And then he kills Rick. Oh,
Yeah.
that shot is so good with the wind blowing and the music has that little lingering moment for a second. Oh, it's so freaking good.
And how does he kill Rick?
Oh, you know, just squeezes his head until his eyeball pops out. And it's the best 3D effect you will ever see in any movie before or after.
Man,
And I'm being serious.
The eyeball on the wire is amazing.
Oh, it's great. Like, if you think you've seen it, you have not. You guys.
And then we have the big cat and mouse scene with Chris.
Yeah. It's good. I think that this is one of the better chase scenes in the franchise. I think part 2 has the best one. I think Jenny and Jason and at the end of part 2 is the best one in the entire series, but this one is really good. I think
in the
good.
3 movies that we've done, I agree so far.
Yeah.
I don't know that I love this one because I'll be honest, every single time I watch this movie, when it gets to that, I'm sitting there looking at the time and I'm like, okay, so here goes the Chris and Jason sequence and how long this is, like, what, 15 minutes? How does this take 15 minutes?
Yeah.
I get distracted easy during that moment. In fact, I will say that when I watched this 3 times, the third time watching it in 3D, you know, I can't look at anything else because I've got 3D glasses on and everything else looks weird. So I was paying closer attention. And a lot of things I caught the third time that I didn't catch the first 2 times because I was not distracted and I was laser focused on the movie this time.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I think it goes on a little too long. I think, like, because, come on, they start in the cabin and then Chris gets in the van and she drives to the bridge. Of course, there's no gas. And by the time she flips a switch for the emergency gas, then the bridge breaks. And so Jason shows up at the van. She jumps out the other side after trapping his arms in the window, which was a cool shot where Jason breaks the window with his mask. I thought that was cool.
And then grabs her by the throat.
Well, this is after he grabbed her.
Oh, yeah,
he grabs her by the throat and she rolls up the window to trap his hands.
That's right. Okay.
She gets
I remember
out.
that on the back of the VHS. That image.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
He headbutts the window to break it to get his hands free. And then she goes back to the cabin. So she's back, or no, she goes to the barn. Does she go?
I know that they do,
yeah.
She goes into the house. They go into the cabin. Yeah.
So it's cabin, van, barn.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the van part could have been left out, but hey, suspense, right?
Yeah. And padding. They probably needed to pad it a little bit more too, because they realized that they were probably only at the 60-minute mark, which is again why they threw the opening in, you know?
I appreciated how much she beat the hell out of Jason, though.
She got a couple hits in. And I appreciated the fact that she was proactive. You know, there was a few moments where she was at least not being completely useless, because there's a few movies, not particularly this franchise, but like just other movies where you get characters, and not necessarily just the women, but like just characters in general doing a bunch of dumb, stupid stuff. But she's like knocking bookshelves over to protect herself, and she's making the best out of the situation that she's in. So as annoying as she is as a character throughout the first better half of the movie, I feel like she redeems herself towards the end.
Absolutely. By the way, Richard Brooker said that actually did hurt when they dropped all the books on him for that scene.
It did. There's a few times in this movie where it looks like he kind of got the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah. He definitely, he mentioned that. And Chris mentioned how she had bruises on her body because of,
there's a part where she jumps out of the van and she is coming out of the bridge and she falls, and it looks like she smashed her head right against a rock. It looked like she really, really hit her face, and she got up and kept going, but she's holding on to her face. And I didn't watch the commentary again, like I had already said, but it looks like as she's like limping away that she's holding onto her face in a way that she might have actually hurt herself. And I was curious if that was something that actually happened.
If I remember the commentary correctly, she said that she was fine. She
Okay.
did the trip. The trip was planned. They checked on her immediately. It looked good enough to everybody that they were like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" after it. So
Acting.
So we get back in the barn, and obviously Jason's got Chris cornered, and then Ali shows up again. And
Which is wild. I thought he was dead.
thank God they had enough continuity to make the side of his head bloody. I mean, he didn't look like he'd been beaten to death, but he was beaten enough. And then Jason chops off his arm, which is great.
So silly. I literally thought this character was dead. I completely had forgotten about the character. Even in my notes, I was like, he is chopped to pieces in the barn.
Yeah.
I literally thought he was hacked to pieces with the machete.
Well, he wasn't, because
No.
now Jason hacks him to death with a machete.
Again.
Chris, does she hit Jason right away with the axe in the head? Yeah, right?
Yeah, she hits him in the head with another big 3D moment. This is the big concluding 3D moment.
Wow, 3 times and I'm still forgetting this, because before that, she has Jason chase her up into the loft of the barn.
Yeah.
And she knocks him out, or briefly, and then she hangs him.
Yeah, out of the window of the front of the barn.
Right.
And then when she goes back down, she tries to get out of the doors, and then he somehow like removes his mask and then realizes that he was the one that attacked her from 2 years ago. And then he unhangs himself and then comes at her.
Okay, so that's a funny scene, because even in the commentary, they made a comment like, Jason reveals his face for some unknown reason and then puts the mask back. That's not what happened.
Okay.
Jason is taking the rope off from his neck, and it pushes his mask up. And in that moment, like, they don't show him completely taking the rope off, or else it would have been more obvious that's what was happening.
Yeah.
It just makes it look like he's like, look at me.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, whoa.
But it's not. The mask just comes up as he's trying to take the rope off of his neck.
Which also makes sense, but I think that we have to have that explained to us, which I mean, you just had to explain that to me. And had I watched the commentary, or had you not explained that to me, I wouldn't have known. It just looks like he's like peekaboo.
No, the commentary, they weren't even aware in the commentary. I had to watch it like 3 times to realize, he's taking the rope off his neck.
Oh, you learned that. You just saw that by just saw watching it.
Because I saw that, he reaches up.
He's struggling. Yeah.
He's super strong. So he's strong enough to hold on with one hand to the rope and hold himself up enough to take the rope off.
I see.
But the mask comes up, and then after the rope is off, he puts the mask back down.
On. I see.
So,
yeah.
So then that's when we have Ali coming back and blah, blah, blah. And then she chops him in the head, and he falls, and Jason's down. Now we have maybe the most interesting scene where she's in the raft, or she's in the boat.
Yeah, this part actually, again, because I didn't remember how this movie ended. I thought this part was kind of creepy. This, for some reason, it reminded me of like Italian horror films from the 70s. Just the way that it was filmed and the way that, I don't know how to explain it, but seeing him in the window like that.
Okay, yeah.
It really creeped me out, man. I don't know what it was about it, but it wasn't like anything that it before this entry in the franchise and after. You don't see anything really like that.
No, I like that part of it. But the part I didn't like was just the entire Friday the 13th part 1.
Oh, the ripoff.
Yeah, homage / ripoff, whatever.
Terrible. Oh, well, the effects are awful. The mask that quote unquote Jason's mother is wearing. And even if it's a dream, like, it doesn't add up, especially like, it just doesn't add up. There's no context.
She lost her head in the first movie, so
yeah, and like they just wanted, there was alternate endings shot. I'm pretty sure they had mentioned something about how there was a scripted ending where she decapitates Jason, but the producers wanted like an obvious, they didn't want it to be too definitive or something, right? They didn't
exactly.
And so in the shot ending, they shot another ending where in the dream sequence, they see Rick upstairs. And then when she goes to find Rick, it's actually Jason, and Jason attacks her, but then she wakes up from the dream, and then it's the same thing that happens.
And Jason cuts her head off.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. And then they went with this bullshit ending.
Yeah.
But I do kind of like how they leave it with Chris being taken away in the cop car, kind of laughing and mumbling to herself. I like the idea of a final girl kind of losing her marbles.
Right.
And being taken away, and maybe with the idea that she's probably gonna go crazy after this. That's kind of cool. I like that idea.
Was Alice kind of losing her marbles at the end of 1 though?
She's just kind of like staring off and
that's right.
saying something like, "Oh, there's a boy," and then she dies at the beginning of part 2. So it's
how does it go?
There's a boy. I actually auditioned for that part and I didn't get it.
Damn it. I wish you had. Yeah, there's also Stan Winston actually designed a Jason face that they didn't use it. Yeah. It was for the ending.
It looked like. Yeah, that would have been really interesting to see.
Do you have the Blu-ray?
I do. Yeah, I have this the whole Shout Factory, Scream Factory, whatever it's called.
There's a making of like 25-minute thing. If you watch that, I believe they show Stan Winston's mask in that.
Oh, they actually show the footage of what the mask looks like.
Not the footage, but just the
like
mask
a clip
itself. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So definitely check that out.
The deform makeup, right? Not the hockey mask. Right. We're talking the deform makeup. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. Oh, how neat.
I also think it's funny how so many people have tried to take credit for the mask, even though it was like nobody planned for this mask to be iconic. It was just a thing that they did.
I mean, it was literally as simple as, oh, let's pick that mask up and put it on him. Right? Yeah. Wasn't it just that? Okay.
Because he wants to cover his face,
Yeah. That's like, wasn't it as simple as that in part 2 as well? Like, oh, we need to put something on his head. Let's put a sack on it.
That I can't remember, but the sack is very much creepier than the.
I love the sack in part 2. Could you imagine had they just kept the sack on it throughout the entire series, and like that burlap sack was the face of this series? It would have been an entirely different movie franchise.
That would have been interesting, and that would have been. It would have become iconic.
But it would have been. It just would have. What would we know as Friday the 13th?
Now, one of the last things I want to mention is the music.
Oh, I love this soundtrack. You have this on vinyl, don't you?
I do. I have 1, 2, and 3 on vinyl.
Yes, and this is such a good soundtrack.
And Jason Takes Manhattan. I have that on vinyl too.
How could you?
Because it's so good.
Oh no, I need to watch Jason Takes Manhattan again. I give it such a hard time, but I have a feeling that if I actually sit down and watch it, kind of like I did this one, that I'll probably like it just fine.
We'll talk about that another day. But
you know what? Maybe we'll get that one next.
Well, you never know. You never know.
We'll get a lucky number 8, baby.
Yeah. So with this one, most of the score, I will admit, is just Harry Manfredini doing his Friday the 13th score.
Yeah.
But then you also have that amazing opening disco theme.
It sounds like Mario Brothers.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like that Mario Brothers vibe going on too. And this is a few years before. He knew.
I honestly I think Waxwork Records made a little TikTok video and they had that music playing in the background. And that was the first time I really noticed the score, that theme, the disco theme. And I actually asked somebody on the thread, I was like, what is that music from? And they're like, oh, Friday the 13th part 3. And I was like, what?
It's funny you say that because back in, I think I was in the 5th grade, I was at some retail store and I bought one of those Halloween compilation CDs of horror movie themes.
Oh my God.
It said that it had Friday the 13th on it. And it was like track 6. And it was from Friday the 13th part 3.
No.
And I was like, this is not Friday the 13th. And my friends and I would listen to it and they'd be like, what the hell is that? And apparently it's Friday the 13th. But it was the disco track.
That's
and
amazing.
For years and years and years, I was like, I would always skip it because I was like, what the freak is this? This doesn't make any sense. And come to find out it was from, part 3.
That is amazing. The one thing I remember, because I think, I was 9, I think, when this movie came out. I remember the poster. I think no, this is the second most remembered poster for me, as far as movie posters for the series go. I thought that shot was actually very creepy. The poster, if you remember, is just, you don't see Jason, but it's a shower curtain with the image of the killer behind the shower curtain with a
With
knife
an
poking.
axe. Oh, I thought it was an axe. No.
It's a
Oh,
knife,
the
I believe.
machete.
Yeah, the machete poking
Okay. Yeah.
through the curtain, like coming at you. I always thought that was like an amazing poster until the Friday the 13th Jason Takes Manhattan banned poster.
I love that one. That's
Yeah.
a good poster.
But yeah, so that's what I remember though. I think this movie was very memorable when it came out. And of course, I think we haven't even mentioned it, but it made the most of any Friday the 13th movie until Freddy versus Jason.
It is by far the highest grossing one. I think it made like over 30 million. And it had such a low budget. It was like 2.7 or 2.8 million, I think. And it made like well over what it should have made. And you're right, it has the highest grossing box office until Freddy versus Jason. Do you like Freddy versus Jason?
Yes, absolutely.
I do too.
I haven't watched it. I've only seen it one time in my life, I think.
Oh my gosh.
And I own it. I think I've only seen it the one time I saw it in the theaters.
I'll watch it again.
I will, because I remember, not to get too much into it, but I do remember this feeling. It was very gory, right? And violent.
Oh yeah.
And I do remember sitting in the theater and at one point almost feeling like it was too much for me.
You know, I don't know if it ages as well as it could have, but they did what they could have. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
It turned to 20 this year.
Oh.
It turned to 20 in August. Yeah, so it's a trip. It's a trip, and I've watched it maybe like once a year, I think, since it came out, and it's a lot of fun. I
should watch all the movies, because we don't have another Friday the 13th until next September.
Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?
We have a Friday the 13th in September of next year, and then December of next year. So
okay,
close to each other. Yeah.
All right, but that's a long time from now. That's a year.
But until then, Stanley, I've got 3 questions for you.
All right. I'm like, here we go.
Who would cross the bridge of death must answer me these questions 3.
Question number 1, Stanley. What was your favorite kill or death or what did you think was the best kill or death in Friday the 13th Part 3?
I'm gonna say, okay, I have 2, but I don't feel like one is fair because it's a ripoff from Part 1. I want to say Debbie's, the chest impalement.
It's fair.
But I feel like they ripped it off from Part 1, so I'm gonna say Andy's.
It doesn't matter. That one was an homage.
Okay, yeah. So I would say hers and then Andy's, the split in half handstand.
You like hers better though.
I do. I just think I liked her. And Jason killed a pregnant lady.
That's true, and you never think about that. Even though they make it a point at the beginning of the movie to tell you 2 times in a row that she's pregnant.
Yeah, they straight up kill a pregnant lady. So like I don't know. And that is not why it's my favorite death by any means. But yeah, sorry, I kind of took it to a dark place.
Fetuses.
I hate babies. But yeah, so I think that is my favorite death, followed by Andy's death. I think that the deaths in this movie are so far out. I think especially for the time period and for where we were in this franchise, they're really good.
I think I would go with Andy's. That's my favorite, because that one's good. It's kind of like a crazy iconic death. And then again, I was very surprised at how gory it looked when he was up in the rafters.
Yeah, we're splitting people in half in these movies. Like holy heck.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So question number 2. Do you think this movie is scary?
I don't think it's scary. I thought Part 2 was kind of creepy. It had some creepo elements to it, but I don't think it's scary. But there were some moments that I felt were kind of surrealish. Like I said a little bit ago, there were like Italian-ish, like horror movie, parts to it that kind of creeped me out. But I don't think it's scary. No, I don't think any of these movies are very scary. But there were some creepy moments.
And one thing that lends this movie to not being scary even more is the fact that it is a very bright movie. Like they had to light everything more brightly lit because of the 3D cameras.
That's what I would think.
It makes for a less dark Friday the 13th as far as lighting is concerned. These movies fascinate me because I know for a fact that when these movies came out, they scared audiences. People were scared.
Which is such a funny thing to think about.
I know, when people talk about if you could go back to any time, what would you do? And part of me is like, I would go back and watch Friday the 13th in a theater just to see how scared people are.
Yeah, I would like to go back to like the 50s or like the 60s and watch like Straight Jacket or like movies like that and like see like Psycho in theaters to see people like fainting.
Oh my God, Psycho.
You know, because those are like things that people never like thought that they would ever see, you know, like, so I can, yeah, I know what you mean.
Can you imagine seeing The Exorcist in a theater with the people who saw it when it first came out? My God.
Like I would love to just be shocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
By anything these days.
Well, question number 3, my friend.
Uh-huh.
Did you have fun with horror?
I did. I had a lot of fun with horror. I always do. Especially with you, man. You always give me a good time with horror.
Yeah, but it's not about me because we didn't watch the movie together. It's about whether you have fun watching the movie.
I did. I had fun with horror watching this movie.
It's interesting because the more we've gotten into this podcast, we're 103 episodes in, the more I actually do like that question because, like, for instance, last week that you were at the end of the episode last week, or our last episode, I should say, we did Talk to Me. I'm not going to spoil the movie, but I will say that when we got to the third question and Andrew said, "Did you have fun with horror?" I said, you know what? I didn't think this movie was that fun, but I think it's an excellent movie. Like, it's not a
fun movie.
And that's the idea of the question. It's not to say whether you think a movie is good or not. I don't think Friday the 13th Part 3 is necessarily a good movie.
Yeah.
But you know what? I had more fun watching it this time than I expected to, especially given that back when I watched it in 2014, I was surprised at how not good it was compared to other movies.
I think I had a lot of fun with it, knowing that I was going to be talking about it too, knowing that there was like, you know, plot points that we were going to be able to discuss and knowing that there was stuff that we're going to be able to break down. So yeah, I think going into it, knowing that there was going to be this to look forward to, I think was also really helpful.
Amazing.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's it. That, my friends, was Friday the 13th Part 3D.
Ooh. I always forget the D. I'm like 3, and then I want to cut you off.
Stanley, don't forget the D.
I know. Oh gosh, good one. Good one. I love it.
It's my bag. I'll take care of it.
Shelley, what are you doing in there? Why aren't you down at the lake with everybody else?
Oh, they said they were going skinny dipping, and I'm not skinny enough.
You know, thank you once again to Stanley, our dear, dear friend Stanley, for joining me and discussing Friday the 13th Part 3 with me on this very special bonus episode. But that means now Andrew has joined me again. Hi, Andrew. You're back.
Buddy.
Hey.
Thank you, Stanley.
Before we go further, Andrew, what do you think of, what's your feelings about Friday the 13th Part 3 in the pantheon of Friday the 13th movies?
It's one of the more ridiculous ones, but it is fun because, like, there's so many iconic moments. The popcorn, the eye bulge. There's like just so many 3D moments that are ridiculous, but make that movie what it is. But the one thing, I mean, I've talked about this. I think I talked about you. I think I've talked about JD. Is it's crazy that this is the movie where Jason gets the mask. Yes. You know, I mean, it's wild because this movie is bonkers. But this is the one. I mean, if you need to see one where he gets his most iconic look from, it's this. This is where his origin of the mask, which is just very silly to me. But I mean, I love the whole series, so I this one's definitely a little sillier, but it's always fun to watch. Always.
Now I'm putting you on the spot since Stanley and I watched it. Do you have a favorite kill or death in this movie that you can remember?
I mean, the eye poking out is just, it's so iconic and it's so much fun and so ridiculous. And that's the one I will always think about when I think of this movie. Awesome. Always. So yeah.
Well, now that this has happened, now that this bonus episode has happened, Andrew, you're picking our next movie.
I am?
What are we watching and what are we discussing 2 Tuesdays from now? Okay,
well, I think you might know what it might be, but I'll give everyone a little backstory. I've never seen this movie. This is arguably, I mean, could be considered the most famous, most well-known horror movie of all time. and I've never seen it. And I am excited to say that our next movie is The Exorcist.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The original Exorcist, which if you would like to watch, you can rent or buy, of course. Many of you probably already own this. But if you have Max, it's also streaming on Max as well. So, yeah, this movie's been out for, 50 years or so, and I've never seen it.
Just to be clear, we're watching the original Exorcist and not Exorcist 2 the Heretic.
No, correct. No, the original.
Okay.
The original. I've seen clips, I've seen bits, but I've never watched this movie, man. So this is a big one for me, man. This is a big movie.
Yeah, it is. I'm extremely, extremely anxious and excited to talk to you about it and to hear all of your thoughts about this movie, especially because I love hearing the thoughts of somebody who waited a long time to watch a very, very famous movie.
Right.
A movie that I feel holds up to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some older movies you and I have talked about that we wished we had grown up with it. We had seen it back when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very curious. I'm anxious to hear what you think. So
I'm excited, buddy. And I'm excited though too. I'm glad I waited. I mean, I never knew I was going to be doing it for this.
Correct. And we'll talk about that in the next episode because we've talked about this movie before.
Right. So I'm just excited that I get to do it with you, buddy, and talk about it with you. I'll say that.
Oh, good. I'm excited that you get to talk to me about it too. I feel very honored.
Oh, you're the best, buddy.
I assume you're going to watch this one by yourself.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. I'll let you know when we watch it.
I think you should call Pastor Dan. Have him come over. Make it a party.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this special Friday the 13th bonus episode. Stay tuned 2 Tuesdays from now when episode 104 will be The Exorcist. And then after that, we will have an episode coming out on Halloween. So we have an exciting month still ahead of us, even though half of it's already through. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We love you. Thank you.
If you would, as we always ask, please go on Apple Podcasts, give us a nice little rating review.
Yes,
we're on social media. You can find us everywhere. So just look up Fun with Horror Podcast. We're going strong. We're having fun.
Yeah.
With horror.
Always. Fun with horror.
And Andrew, I love you so much, buddy.
Scotty, I love you so much, buddy.
You're my best friend.
You're mine too.
Okay. I have one last thing to say to you, man.
Okay.
Then there was this cracking noise behind me. I turned around. And standing there was this hideous-looking man. He was so grotesque, he was almost inhuman. He had a knife. And he attacked me with it.